Welcome back. In this tutorial, we're going to learn about panning in mixing. You've heard me mention panning a few times, and I'm just going to recap what exactly panning is. When you hear a song, you're generally hearing one thing coming out of the left speaker and another thing coming out of the right speaker. Before the 1950s, playback systems only had one speaker. Music consisted of only one channel instead of the stereo pair that we're used to right now. Stereo listening offers a more realistic and interesting listening experience because sounds appear to exist in different places spatially from left to right, and they move around. The positioning of tracks across the stereo field or the stereo image is called panning. Panning is technically achieved by lowering the volume in one channel and increasing it in the other. These days, surround sound panning is pretty common. You just pan your tracks across 3D space in 360 degrees. Panning is short for panorama. The name derives from cinema terminology, where a camera pans across a room as it points to different things. Panning has a significant impact on left and right channel volumes. A track's loudness depends upon where it is panned. That's because something panned to the center sounds louder to us than if it's panned to the left or the right. For this reason, some people prefer to pan before they start mixing. Others prefer to leave panning until the end, thinking that if you set the pan positions early, the mix gets too dependent on those pan positions. The conservative approach is to make sure that your mix sounds good in mono too. Your music software makes some assumptions about how to handle the fact that tracks sound louder when they're panned to the center. These are called stereo pan laws. In Cubase, you choose the stereo pan laws during the project setup. As tracks are panned center, you can choose to lower the volume by a preset amount, -6 decibels, -4.5 decibels, -3 decibels, or you can choose equal power. This means that the total volume will be adjusted automatically so that it always stays the same instead of seeming louder. If you're having trouble with panning, experiment with the different pan laws. Most DAWs will give you a way to do this. And what's extra cool is that it's easy to adjust the instruments as the song plays along. This is through automation. Let's close the project setup window now. And what I'm going to do is open the mixer window in Cubase. The mixer window is where I set the basic panning. I've got my piano panned about halfway left and right, and my bass panned just a tiny bit off-center. I drag the positions using these sliders. In Cubase and in most other DAWs, I've got 3 different options: the dual panner, the combined panner, and the balance panner. And I just drag left and right, all the way out to 90 degrees in either direction. If I drag all the way out to 90 degrees, that's indicated with the letter L or the letter R. And let's bring it back to center. Many instruments recorded in stereo will have center defined and they won't be spread out, so for example, guitar. Some synthesizers will be really spread out. The original sound is panned in one direction in one channel and then replicated in another channel, panned in another direction with delay. So how do you know where to pan your tracks? Well, typically, the most important stuff and the tracks with the lowest frequencies go center. So the bass, the snare, the kick, and the vocals or lead instrument are usually panned center or near center. Guitars can be panned left or right, and stereo keyboards, drum cymbals, and toms are also panned left or right. For some genres, like jazz, more realistic panning is really important to the listening experience. You might want to pan the instruments to simulate a band as viewed from the audience. You might hear the drums on the left, the piano on the right, the bass in the middle, and the saxophone slightly to the right. Whereas in rock recordings, spatial realism is not a high priority. The drums and piano are often way spread out between the two speakers. Regardless of your genre, try to achieve a stereo image that is well balanced either side of center. You want to pan tracks to many points between the monitors: left, center, half right, and right. If some instruments cover the same frequency range, pan them to opposite sides to help maintain separation and clarity. Some sounds are usually left unlocalized. For example, harmony singers and strings should be spread out rather than appearing as point sources. Some sounds can wander between the speakers like stereo keyboards. Pianos are usually panned from the point of view of the pianist, with the treble on the right and the bass on the left. You can also pan your layered tracks across the stereo image in different positions. This helps fatten up the sound. So for example, pan your dry guitar signal slightly left and then your wet signal with chorus slightly to the right. Panning doubled vocals left and right gives you a more spacious feel. You can just put them both a bit off center. Horns and strings are often spread out with reverb and chorus. You'll also want to create some front to back depth. Dry instruments sound close and reverbed instruments sound further away. Using this technique can give your stereo music extra depth and dimension. And this concludes our tutorial about panning during the mixing process. In our next lesson, we're going to learn about different kinds of effects and where to put them in your work.